Welcome back to Offscript by Penimo, the series where we skip polished panels and we dive into unfiltered conversations around finance, AI, tokenization, and the energy transition. I'm joined by my co-host and CEO of Penimo, Deustche, and our guest today, Arnold Lukas, an attorney at law with over 25 years of experience in corporate banking, IT, contracts, compliance, and blockchain regulation. Welcome both.
Welcome.
Thank you, Laya, and thank you, Arnold, for taking the time for being here. As always, it's a pleasure to speak with you. Before we don't have to go into my introduction much. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Penamos. It's known by now to our audience, but yeah, I'd leave the floor open, and I'm happy to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me on both. I have the privilege of providing some legal advice to Penamo. How did I get into crypto as a lawyer? Well, this basically comes back to my banking background that Laya already briefly touched upon. In corporate and investment banking, I was also busy in some times with transaction banking, which has all to do with international corporate payments, with security settlements and financing. So early on, a couple of years ago, we already very thoroughly looked into the potentials that crypto or the impacts that crypto might have on traditional banking. And as you all have seen in the past couple of years, no traditional bank has disappeared due to blockchain technology, but they all peacefully coexist with each other, traditional finance and the new fintechs and even decentralized finance. But recently, I'm happy to say that I see a bit more activity in traditional banks investing, getting themselves more invested in the blockchain space. For example, my former company, Deutsche Bank, one of their asset management subsidiaries, has joined efforts with the recently established first stablecoin, e-money token in Germany, which they hope to use to facilitate asset management transactions. So there is something going on slowly but steadily. JP Morgan, for example, has many years ago introduced their JP coin, which is still alive
Yeah.
and seems to be still kicking and coming back. Let's see what happens here, but that's something, Jess, I understand you will touch upon later when we talk about the United States.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Correct. I mean, there's so much to cover in your background, right? I mean, maybe we can begin with, unless La, you have a specific question. I have, I can go into the background a little bit deeper.
Go for it, go for it.
No, sounds good. So, I mean, first of all, I think the audience, what they would love to know is like, what is it that you currently do
Uh,
at Gunnar Cook, right?
yeah,
And then we
yeah.
can maybe.
I'm partnered at the Gunnar Cook law firm. We're a global law firm that specializes in all fields of the law. And my particular practice is blockchain and banking and capital markets law. We are one of the benefactors of the Brexit, I have to say, since what we have established is that all the Anglo-Saxon crypto companies that want to find an entry into the European market, they find it difficult to get into there. Usually they would all have gone to London as their natural choice, but the British government, in its wisdom, simply forgot to negotiate services, amongst them banking, in their Brexit negotiations. So this kicked Britain out of what we call the passporting rule in finance, which means if you have whatever financial regulated activity and you need a license from whatever financial regulator, it's simply enough to get this license in one of the 27 European Union countries, and then you are free with this license or passport to do this financial activity, sell a bond, for example, a tokenized bond, sell it all across the European Union with its 450 million inhabitants. Yeah? And that's where the 60 million Brits kicked themselves out. Now, they still have a lot of entrepreneurial energy over there in London. Yeah, that's enviable. Lots of blockchain projects, and our partners in London just collect these interests, put they kind of on a conveyor belt that comes out in Berlin or Frankfurt, and we then look at this and provide the advice, set up, for example, operating companies in Germany, get them a license if needed from the regulator, guide them maybe to another jurisdiction inside Europe, for example, Liechtenstein or Luxembourg,
Yeah.
where passporting rules also apply. So we kind of reconnected the Anglo-Saxon world to the European financial
Yeah.
market.
Got it. That's interesting. That's a fascinating way to leverage a situation, and why not, right? Because passporting definitely helps us so much. I mean, we'll get into that, but excluding yourself from that is definitely, and we see some of the struggles. Yes, there is a great entrepreneurial energy, especially in finance. It's
Yeah.
still going very well. We speak to a lot of clients or client interest from the UK. But that's interesting. But what's more fascinating, especially for our audience, is the odd 30 years you've spent at Deutsche Bank in the past. And I've seen it myself in Frankfurt, right? Your name definitely turns heads, and it has changed. I'll maybe share one example, right? So we were at this at an event with Tech Quartier, and we were pitching it. It was a networking event, and we had some of these friends you know uh, from Deutsche Bank, and we were talking. And then the moment I told them that, hey, Arnold is with us, and they were like, oh wow, oh, the entire demeanor changed. I was like, that's great, Arnold. How do you know Arnold? Oh my God! I said that. What can we do for you? Okay, like so Arnold is well known. So this is my question. So can you summarize all these years in a few in a couple of paragraphs? I know it's a very difficult job, but the audience would
Yeah,
love to know.
okay. I'm a lawyer by training, so when I finished law school, I first didn't know what to do, so I sort of start up with the leading German and maybe one of the back in those days, maybe even the leading global bank, which was Deutsche Bank back in the day, and obviously it was good enough to stay there for 30 years, which was a good employer. I spent all my time in corporate banking. Yeah, with various stations. Everything had to do about financing of corporate working capital or capex investments across the globe, and this gives you exposure to an incredible teams of people from all over the planet. We all had global teams all over the time, which just allows you to draw the best talents that you would find, and even build personal friendships that last. For many years, I would say we had been even a leader in the technological field. And this is where we also started to look into what blockchain could do for or do against to traditional finance. Um, Also, so revolutionary slogans that were brought forward in the early days. That banks are history. Not only the blockchain enthusiasts would come with such claims, but a certain Mr. Bill Gates also said more than 20 years ago, "Give me a piece of payments, and banks are history." Well, we're still around. Mr. Gates and his company, they are all still around, and blockchain also is still around and growing. So we nicely coexist, I would say. So how could we leverage a blockchain technology for banking? So there are a couple of traits that I'm a bit astonished and not fully exploited by the banking industry. One is the immutable character of everything that's recorded on the blockchain, which actually should make every auditor happy. Yeah, it's an auditor's wet dream, an unbroken paper, or this in this case, block trail of all transactions that ever happened. This is not utilized by banks. This could facilitate many things in trade finance or maybe compliance. Yeah? I would say a large chunk of all the bank's energy goes into compliance. Yeah,
Yeah.
KYC.
There's a crazy number. Actually, we were in Luxembourg recently. Didn't mean to interrupt, but there was a question from a regulator, from the head of finance association of Luxembourg, and she asked, "What's the total amount of costs that a bank spends in staying compliant?" And that's like 70 to 80% of all costs
Of all
spent
course,
by a
yeah,
bank. On average, it can be lesser, it can be more. I mean, but it's a staggering number. The point is, it's a staggering number
sounds
just to stay
so,
compliant.
sounds plausible. Sounds plausible. It's a first is a regular banking compliance that you have to perform, but that's basically not that much different from any other company. But then on top comes a lot of very specific financial compliance that you need to do. You need to know all your customers. That's what the acronym KYC stands for, which always comes with AML, which is anti-money laundering, and ABC, anti-bribery and corruption, and things like and CTF, counter-terrorist finance. These all go hand in hand, and it's not always as easy as it sounds in traditional banking, as opposed to blockchain banking. You still have intermediaries, yeah, correspondent banking, and so I am also responsible that my correspondent banks in other countries follow the same strict compliance rules that are applied to me by my regulator. So I have a multi-layered compliance approach, which makes things complicated, expensive, and gives regulators from almost every jurisdiction a way to scrutinize my business. So it's hard to see a client when you're and all your time is consumed by just being compliant. Seems to rhyme with client,
That's
yeah, but it keeps me away from the client. And I'm a
that's
client-oriented
fascinating.
person.
Awesome. Yeah, we have our first question from the community. So before we go into anything else, I'd like to ask this because it's a bit personal about your background. So they're asking, after 30 years in such a regulated sector, what made you move to more of like this startup environment and the
Yeah.
blockchain slash crypto space, and the space especially that still needs to be improved?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. It's simply simply the wish to do something entrepreneurial, yeah, for my final years, and it's just so much fun to work with young entrepreneurs, to help them and guide them through this universe. Not only with the legal expertise that I have, but also with some hopefully some wisdom I may have acquired through the years. Some experience of do's and don'ts, what is feasible and what not. And Jess has been an avid learner, I have to say, always open-minded to receive good advice when it was good. Always critical, so it's good to have smart minds to discuss things. And one of the rewarding things is that you get to speak when you leave the super regulated space. Yeah? We later talk about where regulation still sticks to blockchain, and I'm a lawyer, so we are somewhat regulated as well. But it simply frees up your mind. You can think in more open ways, and it's such fun to work with people that are hopefully smarter than yourself. Only when you work with smarter people, you learn something. Yeah? Only smarter people than yourself understand what you can bring to the table. And that's something that I really still find rewarding in this new space, in particular with startup companies, but I also also advise on well-established firms, be it in the machine tool sector, in media. It's not only finance.
Yeah. I mean, before we go to the next question, I know, Alaya, you probably have a question, but since you mentioned about learning from smarter people, and this is one of the things that we loved about you, Arnold, because I've definitely come across people with so much experience, but they're not that open-minded, and ego takes, over them, and which is they are lost in a way. But you have always been super supportive, and we love to learn from you. But you're also very open-minded, and that combination is very very hard to find. So yeah, it's definitely been fun till date. But I have more questions, but I know Laya has some to begin
I
with.
do,
So
I do. But yeah, just to finish on that, I think we're both very grateful to have you on as an advisor for Penimo. And you're bringing a lot of value. So yeah, we'll get to share that today with our community. Yeah, moving on to a question. So I think for many of our listeners, the concept of a token representing a physical asset can still be a little bit
It is.
abstract. So from a perspective, how do we classify these tokens? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's one of the key questions. What tokenization is actually all about, isn't it? What really is a token? Technically speaking, a token is simply a digital entry into a specific database, which is in this case a blockchain database where it is stored in blocks, which is nothing new. Storing data in blocks was first invented in the 1970s. That's quite some time ago, back in the well, even in my childhood days. What was new about blockchain is as a distributed way to store this information. This really is new. This makes it truly immutable. This makes it very resilient. Resilience is something that we desperately need in our entire digital infrastructure, not only in banking, particularly in banking, but in our entire digital civilization. We need resilience, and currently, a couple of German airports are still under a crypto attack, under a cyber attack as we are speaking, and the blockchain, so the Bitcoin blockchain, which may be a technological dinosaur. Please keep in mind the Bitcoin blockchain is older than Facebook, and it's still called being an innovative. Nobody would call Facebook innovative. It's just an everyday staple. Is still running flawlessly. Maybe consume too much energy and things like that, but it still does what it was supposed to do. So that's a super piece of resilience that's hard to find in the technological world. So we have something that is resilient. What does this mean for assets? It means that an asset, that I can always be sure that this asset that is recorded on such a blockchain is still there, it's the same asset, and it's exactly that asset that it is. Yeah? Where else do I have this in the physical world? I have it in the land registry, for example. Yeah? Which, by the way, is also decentralized and has multiple blocks or pieces of paper. The buyer has one, the notary has one, the registry has one, the seller has one, and so on. And this has survived over centuries as well. So we have a clear registry of an asset, so we can be sure this is an asset, and it's even more tamper-proof and more authentic than what we have in paper registries. Period. That's I think what's by now accepted. Now, is it really as good as a piece of land or as your smartwatch or whatever? No, it's not. Yeah, because you cannot grab it. It's just it's not a property. It's not ownership. It's not a right in rem, as the English lawyers say. It's just a contractual claim. If you have tokenized an asset, you have a claim against your contractual partner to do something with this claim, hand it over to you, give it to someone else, pay you a purchase price for it, but whatever the underlying transaction is. So it is a claim. How would we change this? Some legislations have changed this, and in Germany a couple of years ago, we introduced the electronic securities law, which did two legal tricks. We lawyers are good in doing tricks and pretending that things are what they are not. The one thing is that, well, if ownership can be much more easily established with a physical object, and securities we still treat as if they were physical objects. Let's just pretend that an tokenized asset is a physical object. We treat it as if it were a physical object. That's what we have in the law. So how do we make this reliable for the general public so that these assets can be easily and reliably traded? We put them in a registry, comparable to a land registry. Yeah? So you have a crypto registry, which is a licensed activity. You need a license from BaFin. I've assisted companies in obtaining such licenses. And I wrote some legal documentation for things like that. And then you can tokenize any asset, and then you have real ownership. You have real ownership of the bond, or maybe even recently they extended it to stocks. Yeah? So that's a major step forward, I think. In Switzerland, they have had similar things for quite some time. They have similar legislation in Liechtenstein,
The DLT Act,
but these are
yeah.
considerably smaller markets.
Correct. And so here I think you were also pointing to EWPG in Germany, the Electronic Digital Securities Act. But then my question comes, right? Passporting is tricky, and there's a lot of things that come with this. So in our case with Windows Solar, for example, right? And with Black Manta, so we fall under the MiFID II regulation. And MiFID II is not the same as EWPG. So you can't really have on-chain native issuances of security tokens which represent the actual ownership. So it's rather that you have a debt instrument and then you tokenize it, and then you have ownership of the rights to the bond, or unless in our case every bond then or every token then represents an equal part, or for like there's always this thing that why can't we simply have it on chain, and the regulator plays an important part in this, right? So how would you differentiate MiFID II versus EWPG, for example?
They actually fit together quite nicely. Yeah. First of all, MiFID II, Market in Financial Instruments Directive, which is basically a European Union-wide piece of legislation that aims at investor protection, financial market stability, and in market integrity and things like that. It basically stipulates that before you sell a security on the market, you have to give all the necessary information to prospective investors and the other market participants, like exchanges and things like that. And this document where this information is collated is called the prospectus. Yeah, so you have this so-called prospectus regime, and normally, and BaFin has clarified this in the circular 2 weeks ago. This is a general rule with only very few exceptions. And whenever you put something on the security on the financial markets, you have to write a prospectus, yeah, and submit it to the competent regulator. In Germany, it would be BaFin. Now, this security can be very traditional, paper-based, can be the so-called global certificate. You issue 1 million shares or pieces of a security, but write only one piece of paper, put it into the vault, and then you trade everything via the electronic data that represents this paper. This is a traditional way. Or you can register the same thing with a blockchain registry as an electronic security. Yeah. You still have to have the prospectus if it qualifies as a security that is traded on the financial markets. Yeah.
Right.
So the two actually work hand in hand. And what BaFin always is hey, when we look at what all kinds of actors do on the financial markets, we take a completely technology agnostic view. Yeah, we don't care if you put it in a global certificate, in individual certificates, which nobody has done for the last for the last 100 years. If you sizzle it in stone, or if you write it on the blockchain as a security token offering, real-world tokenization, as we say now, or do it as a electronic security with a crypto custodian. If it qualifies as a security, then we treat it as one, regardless of the underlying technology. So the two actually work nicely together.
Interesting. And I have one question here, which is often a topic in Web3, which is all of this sounds so complicated that Web3 the typical Web3 business model is like, oh, okay, we can't simply launch a token and start selling ownership rights to cash flows of certain assets. Why is it so complicated? Right. So the underlying question is, why can't we simply issue a normal token and say, okay, now this token, or if you own this token in your wallet, you own a piece of any real world asset. So why is all this legal complexity important? And of course, we know EU is complicated, and then there are jurisdictions, like the UAE and USA trying to ease things up a little bit. But why have this complex legal work? That's one of the common questions asked.
One answer is at least from not only, but at least from the German legal standpoint, which I can safely represent, as said that you have to differentiate between ownership rights in REM, and contractual claims, contractual rights. What we so far do in tokenization is we tokenize contractual rights. That's the easy thing. Yeah, it used to be called security token offerings. Now we call it real world asset tokenization. That's the easy thing. That's what you have just done. Now you want someone to have ownership of in real estate tokenization of an office building, so to say. Yeah? Would you want him to be ownership is on real estate is documented by entry in the land registry, period. Not only in Germany, all over the place. Yeah? And this is something that as long as you don't have a blockchain-based land registry, which was one of the early use cases actually, when blockchain came into being, this is what you simply don't have. Yeah? Of course, our land registries are all electronic. I've never seen an original paper entry on the land registry. I get a paper print, yeah, but it's a computer printout. Yeah?
Right.
So the traditional world is not as backward as some crypto enthusiasts
Good thing.
imagine. One way, classical way, but this is again the same thing like we do in traditional finances. If you want to split a large piece of an asset, let's say an office building, let's say an industrial plant or something like that, that needs to be financed, you create a special purpose vehicle that holds a piece of the entire thing or the thing as a whole. This is entered as owner into the land registry or into the commercial register. And then you sell shares of this SPV, of the special purpose vehicle, of this company that owns the asset to be financed. And then you own pieces, shares of this company as an intermediary. And then you can say, hey, I have a tokenized share of this company that holds this beautiful and hopefully a profitable office building. Is this a way around? It may look like a workaround, but it's actually the same that we do in traditional finance. Okay. Next question then is does blockchain not open a way to go beyond traditional finance? Yeah. That's what we see in decentralized finance, where we trade peer-to-peer. Without an intermediary like a bank, an exchange, another bank, and another exchange. This is something that is still evolving. Still makes a regulator nervous, because they simply do not have an entity that they can lay their hands upon. And this makes them uneasy. This simply makes them uneasy. And
I mean, people
actually,
have tried that, right? Yeah, I
they
mean,
would have tried it. Yeah.
I mean, and there have been cases where, I mean, the SEC is famous for doing that. You know, BaFin has done this. They always try to make an example. I mean, what's coming out here is that the regulator, as long as the regulation supports it, it's easy. And we are seeing projects find so many ways to go around this, right? So you have these DAO structures. So DAO structures in a way are basically, you know, but they are supported by jurisdictions which are famous or infamous
Yep.
for, you know, for supporting these things. And so for them to blend into real world finance or the mainstream finance becomes more and more tricky. And we are seeing jurisdictions, right, which brings me to the next question. So the Genius Act is out. You know, that we had a very interesting conversation about how stable coins are being used. But maybe we can already go into this. So, you know, the US passed this Genius Act, and now there's a very interesting concept that, you know, stable coins are like the US Treasury's, you know, newest customers. A very nice way to put it. Maybe you can touch on this already, because
Yes, certainly. In the past couple of years, we've seen the emergence of stable coins, most notably, almost exclusively, pegged to the US dollar, which would basically say I issue a token pegged to the US dollar that represents the value of $1, and if you buy this token for approximately $1 or equivalent, you can always hand in this token back to me as the issuer, and I redeem you with another piece that's worth $1 or maybe even $1. Now, when you look at the stable coins that are pegged to the dollar, USDC issued by Circle or USDT issued by Tether. Yeah. They have accumulated multi-billion dollar values. The metric is TVL, total value locked. And interestingly or ironically, crypto value is still displayed in US dollars. You two are young, but I'm old enough to remember that when when Bitcoin firm first was introduced, it was all about replacing the mighty US dollar. So why is the dollar not denominated in Bitcoin, but was still vice versa? Yeah? that, let's now see what happens. What's going on in the United States? They have this, what is it, 37 trillion, or 37,000 billion US dollars of
Debt,
national debt. Yeah?
debt, yeah.
Quite a substantial amount of this is up for rescheduling in the next couple of years. And we've recently seen as an extraordinary situation, completely unusual situation, that in a period where stock prices were rising, also US Treasury bonds, T-bills, that their yields were also rising. That means prices were going down. So the US dollar is, of course, still a safe haven, but maybe not quite so safe as it used to be in the past. So when rescheduling is up in a couple of years, or few years, who would be potential new buyers? The biggest holder, and normally the biggest new buyer of US T-bills would be Japan, South Korea, used to be China. They're deleveraging a bit. Yeah? The 18th largest buyer of new US T-bills is Tether, together with some other stable coins. They even move up some more notches. And this is something that the stable genius in the White House has recognized, that as the Chinese, for strategic reasons, no longer want to buy that amount of additional US T-bills. The Japanese may become a bit more reluctant, just about balancing their investment portfolio, just like you and me, yeah, just on another scale. Places like Germany, for example, have never been amongst the top US holders, as the top holders of US T-bills.
T-bills.
Yeah, Tether already holds more US T-bills than all of Germany. So these would be potential new buyers where the United States could offload their national debt. And this is a kind of symbiotic relationship, isn't it? As demand for US dollar stable bills definitely continues to grow in the market, stable bills do desperately need T-bills to back them up. And the US needs someone, hopefully a friendly force, not a potentially hostile nation, to buy up their T-bills. And these would be US-based stablecoin issuers.
It's already happening, right?
It's already happening. It's already happening. It's no. Is it a genius act? I don't know, but that's what they call this piece of legislation.
Well, it's genius in a way for them, right? It's genius
for them.
the US. Yeah, it's genius for the US to do this. And most of the real world asset tokenization projects are also, the underlying assets are basically T-bills or US Treasury based assets. So you're already seeing that. But I mean, I have obviously more questions, but maybe there's more from the community layer or from you.
Indeed, yeah. There's one from me and then one from the community later on for both of you. I'm saving that one. In one for you. So, how do we talk about the US, but in terms of the European Union, how do MiCA and the upcoming EU frameworks affect tokenization? And do you think Europe is ahead or behind?
With the Genius Act, I would say we've, to be diplomatic, the race is open. We were a little bit behind, a little bit ahead with MiCA. But as always, the European approach seems to be regulate first, even if you don't own a thing of what you regulate. I'm just referring to the Artificial Intelligence Act, as you may have noticed. Regulate first and innovate later, which normally doesn't go very well. It actually is. This is actually a kind of planned economy approach that we had in the past and communist East Germany, and we all know that this did not end very well. And the American approach, in particular in Silicon Valley, and I've worked with a couple of Silicon Valley firms, also in the crypto space, is completely different. Innovate first, break things, learn fast,
Right.
learn faster, get better, and regulate later. And it's not that they don't care about that they would not care about the law. Nothing could be farther away from the truth. Yeah. All the Silicon Valley firms that I've seen, either through clients who contracted with them or working with them directly, have put an extraordinary amount of effort and money into being compliant and often being super compliant. They just move fast. And this also shows in financing. I mean, Jess and Laia, you know it better than I do, how hard it is to get a little piece of venture finance over here in Europe. Yeah. And what I realized when I just peeked in from the side and to some of these Silicon Valley ventures was how fast it is that they get substantial amounts of new finance. Just imagine the salaries of a decent IT developer in this space, or decent lawyers. They have actually oversized law firms, all of them. Oversized law departments, all of them. With 50 people startup with 5 lawyers on their payroll is clearly an oversized law department, isn't it? So they want to be compliant. They innovate very much, and with their salaries, the normal seed finance amount is about 25 million. It's all on their web pages. Yeah, you have the usual suspects of the usual Silicon Valley investors. They're all the same, more or less. And when when these first 25 million are beginning to be used up, which can hardly last longer than 2 years or so, they already see what has been built and if it is a minimum viable product and if it is promising. Since the Series A comes around the corner, and then these usual suspects of California venture capitalists call each other and their friends, and I've seen it that 3 or 4 months later, 90% of the very large, from European perspective, very large amount of money was paid in as venture capital, and so they could go on the next hiring spree and build and build and deliver and deliver.
Interesting. So, based on what you just said, would you define innovation not just as creating something new, but shortening the distance between idea and execution?
That's certainly one thing where we in Europe could learn from America. I'm speaking so hesitantly because Europe has not been an avid learner in the past couple of years, has it? Yeah. So
Agreed.
from entrepreneurial energy, California, I would say, is still the place to be.
Yeah, things.
Yeah, agreed. It's
Yeah,
probably
the
more.
US simply has more risk capital, right? I mean, they
Completely
think
different
like,
mindset, just completely
yeah,
different mindset. Yeah.
yeah, and it's all rooted in risk from what I see here. I've seen a lot. They want to be like the ones in the States, but then when it comes to actually giving access to their wallets, then they go back to the same very risk averse mindset, and which is kind of the main reason why Europe is finding it very difficult to progress at the same rate and build competitive products. Well, AI has kind of made it easy now because technology is in the hands of, you can do a lot more with AI right now than you could do
Mhm. Mhm.
before, and which is bridging the gap a little bit. But that's interesting. Lai, do we have more questions from the community right now?
I do actually. Just now that you bring that one up. So we define innovation as we just said, which is basically shortening the time between available, like the idea and the execution or delivery. Do you, and that's for both of you, do you think that is something that sets Panama apart? Like, do you think Panama has an advantage that institutions that are slowed down because of all this bureaucracy that we've been talking about are still hoping too
Um,
much?
well, I'm still impressed, Jess, that your first token offering is now out on the market. Yeah, and I'm pretty hopeful that it will be concluded successfully. And when did we actually start on this particular thing? It wasn't long ago, a couple of months ago.
No, yeah, just a couple
Was,
of months
was it?
ago, and we've mobilized a lot of things together at the same time for this one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's being an avid learner, taking advice from all parties involved. Um, we all learn from each other. Nobody insisted that he was right and or righter than the other guy, but everybody took what the others contributed. That was valuable, um, and I'm really impressed by the speed and hopefully quality that we delivered. Yeah. This is the first of your issuances. Um, we still look at it a little bit as also proof of concept. I think
Correct.
well, first 30 or 40% of this proof have been successful. Now let's see how how this turns out, and then you're moving on with larger volumes, as I understand.
Yeah.
And this is something where you can really make an impact. And considering when we started, where we started, this is actually a pretty fast turnaround time. You
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Technologically, this is sound. Yeah, considering what Sasha keeps developing. Um, you're interconnected, very well networked into the world of potential token buyers. So um, this seems to be the start of a hopefully very successful journey.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've covered the right points. For a company our size, for a product uh, this which falls under MiFID II, a lot of people, a lot of very mature companies have asked us, how are you able to get this, MiFID II thing, whatever you have, how is it possible? We don't see a solution, and because usually you need a lot of capital, so it needs it the effort which has went in the last year and a half is something which is not obviously visible until this point when you see a transaction like this going out within European laws. And again, the whole idea is, yes, there is this institutional bureaucracy, and the first proof of concepts. The job becomes to tell the institutions that, look, we can't do business the way that you are used to, and in the regulatory environments that you are more familiar with. But now we've taken these POCs and we've turned this into a repeatable product, and we're automating these functions which have been, very chaotic for you. And this is how we can scale. And these are the things which are bringing the confidence of the right customers in, and really helps us serve this massive market in the energy transition finance, which is what we saw in Luxembourg. We'll cover more of this in the next calls, but yeah, I would say you have to make things repeatable. You have to take bureaucracy and turn it into an opportunity for the same clients which are stuck in that space, and that's what we're essentially doing. And yeah, I mean, Arnold, you have helped us on the legal side of things. Fortunately, we also have good partners. You can't do anything alone in this space. It's
Exactly.
just not
Yeah.
it's not possible. It's not possible. At least if you want to go to scale, yeah. I mean, we can continue doing one-off transactions. And still, it would take too much time. So I hope that answers the questions. The competitive edge comes from focusing on one niche, which is a very gray zone area for a lot of investors. Make it into a product which can be easily bought into, and then you start automating things, which is a lot. What Credos is doing, which we'll get into that. But yeah, I'll stop here and maybe go to the next questions.
Yeah, I think we could do a separate one on both. That could be a long one.
Yeah,
But yeah, question for
yeah,
Arnold,
yeah,
bringing it back
absolutely.
to tokenization. What asset classes do you think are actually suited for tokenization? And like forgetting about all the hype and the hot things at the moment.
Uh, well, what's most popular? Most popular actually are currently stablecoins, US dollar stablecoins. A couple of weeks ago, the first euro-denominated or euro-pegged stablecoin was issued, luckily in my hometown of Frankfurt. But it's not yet on a global scale, not a global global markets impact. Then you have everything that can be financed. We have a lot going on in real estate tokenization. There is always this field, has always been and continues to be in green technology. I've done a green technology security token offering many years ago in the double-digit million space. Now Jazz is venturing into this field, which again comes with multiple regulations. Yeah, we have the financial regulation, we have technological regulation, product security when it comes to electricity. We have green taxonomy
Taxonomy, and yeah,
regulations.
this
Yeah,
it's like this
we
five, six more layers.
yeah, we
Yeah,
have to avoid greenwashing, which is absolutely no problem, and the things that you are doing at this moment in time couldn't be any greener. And so it's companies. There used to be some talk in the early blockchain days about tokenizing intellectual property. Would this come back with all the talk about, all the discussion about intellectual property and artificial intelligence? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe if you want to have proof of ownership or who owns what, which right, it wouldn't have to be very fast, and doing this very fast in the blockchain field in nanoseconds is well, blockchain isn't that fast, isn't it? Yeah.
correct. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the high speed trading topics that we've spoken of, we won't get into that right now because it's well, we'll just keep it. But yeah, I think from my side, the asset classes, it lot depends on the buy side. The problem with most asset classes being tokenized is there's no validation if there's a real buy demand or not. It just sounds fascinating to somebody, and they decide that it should be tokenized without talking to. So
Yeah.
the real business principles, which are actually very basic, that talk to your customers and make sure there is demand is a problem, which is a lot of what happens in Web3. In principle, I think if you have an asset class which has previously only been accessible to specific group of investors, and has a great cash flow and has all of these elements, which in principle would also be interesting for retail or other professional asset classes, right? You have the large institutions, mid-size, and you have small-size professional. Then you have retail, and then you also, you have the public markets. And if there's a demand, so for example, in our case, right, I'm trying to be not so biased, but real estate definitely has a lot of demand. So I think that's very interesting, which is we're seeing a lot of that in Dubai. Energy infrastructure. I mean, I can't give you a bigger example than last week. Ant Digital, Jack Ma's Ant Digital, they just tokenized 8 billion worth of renewable energy assets in China. They started with 40 million worth of assets as a POC. So the whole idea of that is that you got to make the if you for I mean speaking for our case, if you really want to mobilize so much amount of 5 trillion plus worth of capital by yearly by 2030, the problem is not that the capital doesn't exist. It's existing, but it's not leaving the right pockets at the right amount of time when it's supposed to be. And by tokenization, you reduce the entry barrier, and you're giving the professional one private professionals capital segment uh, the ability to build their own risk adjusted portfolio, right? You don't have to buy into the entire debt, but you can just take part of it. And then if you do this for a lot of private allocators, you're mobilizing that. The blockchain brings a lot of transparency, which for our case is very efficient, is very, very useful for EU taxonomy, SFDR regulations, and all of these things to make sure that whatever we are doing, because what's interesting about green energy or EU taxonomy is that unless you have a paper or you have some proof which shows that this is following a certain regulation, it's not classified. So no matter how, so the reality has nothing to do with what's on paper. So and for all of these things, blockchain matters a lot. In principle, it is very tradable, even though the secondary markets are not that high. So all of these things, wherever uh, there's high demand and where there's a need, those asset classes make sense. So I think real estate is good. Um, uh, our infrastructure, infrastructure in general is very good because public capital needs to blend with private capital. There is a need of that. So, but I think other than that, there are interesting ideas of movies and the rights of what is it, production
Yeah,
houses being tokenized, which is
yeah.
fascinating. Which
Here
is
we are.
where
Intellectual property. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
exactly,
legal
IP.
term.
That's the legal term, which
Copyright.
is yeah, and where there's huge marketing involved from retail investors, where there's fans, right, and who want to buy into a piece of something. I think this could work very well there. But I see a lot of crazy ideas, like somebody was trying to tokenize his own life, right? I mean, think about it as an investor. You're a content creator, and you're like, whatever capital you provide me as a community fan, I'm going to share X% of all revenue that I make using that as a content creator. I mean, that's good. And then there were some other crazy ideas which are not safe to talk openly on this space. Um, but yeah, it has to be real. It's fascinating. It sounds, but I think there's a lot of a misconception about where there's real demand versus what sounds like a great idea. That's what I would say. But yeah, I'm sure there's some questions from the community. I don't know if we should dodge them now or go towards the final questions because we almost at the
I
end.
think let's go towards the final questions. We have a few, but there's a couple I want to end with.
Yeah. So I mean, you can go, but yeah, let's address the community.
It's fine. Don't worry. I'll get it. Let's have a couple more questions before we go there, because I think it would be
Ah,
really nice to look at that. Interesting.
okay. So yeah.
Yeah.
No, no.
Yeah. So Arnold, if you could design the perfect legal framework for digital assets, what would be the one principle that you would highlight?
It's regulatory certainty. yeah, which is a big thing to say in the European Union these days with our 124 digital laws, up from 126 2 or 3 years ago. They are not all formulated very clearly. They are partly contradicting themselves or other legal principles. They are interpreted differently across the nations and across regulators. Let me give you one example. Just last week, there has been more or less formal or informal paper by the French, the Italian, and another financial regulator on how MiCA, market in crypto asset regulation, is applied throughout European member states. And they said, hey, there are some loose missiles amongst our fellow regulators, regulatory authorities in Malta and Cyprus, usual suspects. They just give away licenses, yeah, and they're not half as strict as we are. That's no way to do it. Yeah, okay. First of all, we need to have reliable regulations. Second is that's they should be technology agnostic, and say okay, which is they claim they are, but once you come with something blockchain, you still need to do a lot of explaining. And I repeat, Bitcoin is older than Facebook. Yeah, and you still have to explain it. Have to explain it to the subject matter experts in regulators, banks, and so on and so on. So better knowledge on some deeper understanding on their piece. They are quite knowledgeable. They are indeed. Yeah. But sometimes it may be more culture than factual knowledge. Yeah? Just getting to grasp with the idea that there may be cases, decentralized finance, where there is no intermediary entity in between buyer and seller. And that they just have to leave these two autonomous private parties alone. That's so. This would be maybe the third point: education and knowledge,
So
understanding.
meaning more. So when we finally reach Mars and colonize, that's when we can start with this one. Then is that what you're saying, Arnold?
Well, there are certain people in the United States who would bet that they are faster on Mars than.
That's true, actually. That's true. Yeah, oh wow, yeah, that makes sense, right? We're not that fast yet. But interesting, yeah, fascinating because it's very difficult. I mean, you've worked with Puffin so much, right? I mean, you see how there it's almost impossible to get that reform and get that mindset changed, at least in Europe. But so far, I mean, we've seen UAE leading the space, so they are really very because in a way they need that to survive.
Hmm.
That's how they attract the best people there or the projects, to come and build in their space. But yeah, unfortunately, I think in Europe it's a bit too late to be ideal unless there's a shift that we don't see coming.
Well, BaFin in particular considers themselves to be very innovation friendly.
That's
And
it.
would they ever say any different? Of course, but it's also a way of approaching the partners in your project. And if you move
Yeah,
into a regulated space, the regulator is one of the major stakeholders in your project. And this
yeah,
means, and this is something where they're indeed very open, very constructive, is involves them early on, very early on. And then they continue to build your case with you. This can be a cumbersome process, a bureaucratic process. This takes time, and Silicon Valley has moved beyond the horizon in the same amount of time. But they can play a productive role, and they do play a productive role if you involve them early, play with open cards, listen to their advice. and then you build something together. Yeah? I've again seen this with another client of mine who was working in a super sensitive area where crypto, artificial intelligence, and privacy, general data protection regulation, all came together with, and the contractual partner was a Silicon Valley based company, and they basically took in one case for one project took European regulation, in this case as a general data protection regulation, as the kind of blueprint, a building plan, a map to build their business on. Yeah? Because it was built from scratch, so they said, hey, we can build it by what regulation demands. And then we are compliant by design, which is, by the way, what regulation demands. Yeah? And this impressed the regulator. It really did. So there are ways to work with them very constructively, and this is treat them as stakeholders very well, very early on.
But then the rest of the others are kind of missed behind, right? Because then you kind of have that I don't know if it's unfair advantage, but the first few ones who are able to bring the regulator to go together with them, they are in kind of that leveraged position, and everybody else still has to follow what these guys do. So, but it's interesting. Okay, no, I mean, I'll go deeper, but I think we're running out of time. So either I ask my final question or we pre the community.
Go for it as your final.
Awesome. So, I mean, for it's rather light, it's unrelated to regulation or anything else. Arnold, what do you think makes founders or projects in a jurisdiction like Europe successful in the long term, especially in the space of regulated finance? You've seen so much of this, right?
Have a good product, have access to the market, to your customers, be customer focused, just like you are. You can tokenize whatever you want. If you don't find investors, it's useless. And always be willing to learn, in particular from your clients and from the environment. Regulation is basically something that should fit in more or less naturally in an ideal case. Yeah, because no serious business person would do any undecent anyway. Yeah, so it shouldn't be that difficult to comply with regulations.
Got it. Makes sense. So I mean, we can, in my own words, what you're saying is there's no point crying much about regulation. So follow it on time, do it diligently, keep pursuing, and just do your homework when it comes to understanding your
Just do your
clients.
homework. Yeah, it's good housekeeping, actually.
Sounds good. Maya?
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. I think that's very good advice. And I think people just need to kind of accept that some of these bits are going to be complicated and don't get scared by it, rather just work with it. I think that's important. But yeah, it's been a great conversation. And I want to end with this. It's not a question from our community, it's just a statement that they put out. I think I'm not the only one that really enjoyed this. This says, I appreciate the humility of great people like you, Arnold, a characteristic that distinguishes the great, continuous learning. So yeah, I think they're all very grateful and we've all had a great time having.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
So I
to
appreciate
you and to the entire audience for listening into the boring topic of the law and regulation. And Jess, all the best for your endeavors at LAIA.
Wonderful. Thanks, Arnold. It's always a pleasure to talk, and we're going to have a lot more conversations like this, like we have off script anyway. And yeah, look forward to the next time.
See you.
Awesome.
Thank you guys, and I will see you on the next Offscript episode. Thank you everyone for